Hello, Professor Seralini. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Gottfried Glockner.
How are you and what is your job?
Well, as you know, I'm a professor of molecular biology since 1991 in the University of Caen, but I've been an expert for the French government first during 9 years, and then for many other governments such as Canada, Australia, China, and also New Zealand or India about GMOs. So I've been reading all the GMO files, and since I have discovered that there was not only dishonesty, but also bad findings, I decided to repeat the test by myself. And with my group, we did the longest test possible in toxicology, on GMOs and on Roundup, which is the most used pesticide with GMOs in the world.
So, please tell me what are the most important scientific findings in the field of genetic engineering in recent years?
Well, they are very important findings that the people have not always well understood. The first thing is that GMOs are dangerous per se because genes are moved too fast and badly, and we don't know how. However, they are toxic, mostly toxic because they do contain high level of pesticides such as Roundup. And they have been modified for that in agriculture. It's not a mistake. It's because they have been modified to contain high levels of pesticides, such as the GM corn, which is Roundup tolerant, such as the transgenic soya, which is Roundup tolerant, but also there are some BT corns. So we have studied them on cows with you, Gottfried Glockner, that are in fact toxic because they produce their own insecticides that do attack epithelia, the epithelia of the glands, and that may change the functioning of the kidneys. In fact, all these GMOs are toxic on the kidneys and on the livers. And we have been attacked a lot by industry, saying that this was not significant or this was not with the good rats. And we have not only answered to all these criticisms, but confirmed all our data in Nature scientific reports in 2017 and 2018, while there was no other test which has been done in a better manner. That means as long as we have done, they have studied, for instance, recently only carcinogenesis, but have not published that. However, we have studied the whole toxicology of the mammals, and we have seen that the livers and the kidneys, and there are tumors, and the animals have not even time to die of cancer because the cancer comes after they decease from the livers and from the kidneys insufficiencies and nephropathies, attack of the epithelia, etc. And this also invalidates, disturbs sexual hormones. We have seen that in many cases, in human cells, in rats. Recently, we've published that in testis. That means that Roundup penetrates in the testis and may invalidate spermatogenesis and other testicular functions. And the formulants, which are together with glyphosate, for instance, are a lot more toxic, and we have very recently discovered that there was arsenic in all Roundups. There's not only in the glyphosate-based herbicides, but also in all GMOs that are tolerant to Roundup. That means 80% of GMOs today. Moreover, we have discovered that the transgenic corn by itself is like a dead organism because it creates a lot of cadaverine and putrescine, which are proteins that are normally concentrated only in putrefaction during after the death of the organism. But because of the genetic stress, this corn is making a lot of these proteins normally only dedicated to death, but it is making that during its life, and that may be toxic for the animals that are eating that. We've published that in Nature Scientific Reports by the end of 2016. So now we have confirmed, and we have won 7 court affairs for defamation that when we have attacked. So we know who the lobbies are. They have more means of communication than we have. However, they are very fragile because they are giants with big holes in the knees, in the feet. And we know today that one day, because of the civil society, we will win for truth and transparency.
And what did you think are the consequences out of these studies and informations?
The consequence is that we can explain with the toxicity of pesticides and with the toxicity of agricultural GMOs on the long term, most of the chronic diseases that we see in every family. That means some hormonal disease, nervous disease, some tumors and cancers, also some immunodeficiencies, and also malformations of the babies, and problems of hypofertility or sterility, lack of libido, lack of potency. We have seen that most of these products are in fact like spams, endocrine and nervous disruptors in the body. So they interfere with all our cell-cell communication system, and that creates chronic disease in the long term. Every family is suffering about these with these chronic diseases. That also enhance the quantity of medical drugs, but in fact, all these companies are also retailing and selling medical drugs, and they are petrochemical industry that are the richest in the world, and we need to change this world. Anyway, this world is changing, and we have to know in order to be able to have a system more transparent and more agroecological in the future.
What does it mean for the population? What can the people do?
Oh, the people can do a lot. Because of the organization like yours, like the civil society, everywhere in the world. I've seen that in India, in Germany, but people like you, but also in France. We have seen that in Italy, in Australia, in New Zealand, in many countries. We've seen the people reacting and embedding the process or inhibiting the process of the industrialization of agriculture. And when I began, glyphosate was considered as water, like water. And now everybody knows that it is dangerous. And we have discovered in addition that there are a lot of very toxic hidden poisons not declared together with it that are even more dangerous and that are a real fraud from Bayer Monsanto. And people can do a lot because in 1998, when I began in these studies, Monsanto said that by the year 2000, they will control 50% of the European agriculture. Today, in 2018, they control 0.05% of the agriculture, and organic agriculture is representing maybe 100 times more than GMOs in Europe. So it's the future, because you know that with organic agriculture and agroecology, we can feed 12 billion people in the world without polluting, without having very poor people dependent on agrochemical industry, intoxicating the peasants and the farmers all over the world. So people can do a lot because they reacted, and Monsanto has lost. This is one of the reasons, not the only one, but one of the reasons why it had to be sold to Bayer, and it wouldn't have been able to be to belong to Bayer without the German money, without the money of the European banks. You know, all that is just public affairs. It is and compromission and frauds. It is not real economy, because they don't retail, they don't sell anything that people really need. And it is sold because of our income tax and because of the help of big banks that are in fact loaning our income tax return.
So what are the most important victims about these long time hard job for everybody who works on it, and for the people who understood well what's going on with GMOs? So what are the most important victims in Europe and the world?
In the world, we have victims in Argentina, where these GMOs and Roundup are sprayed a lot. We have victims in Sri Lanka, where it is visible that the farmers die from kidney problems because of Roundup and because of the spray of Roundup on GMOs. We have victims that are less visible all over the world, but you know that there are big court affairs going on and big attacks going on from the civil society in North America, especially in Canada, but especially in California and New York. And I've seen the lawyers, and they revealed the Monsanto papers. Monsanto had 18 black files on my name. So I know these people, and I know that the victims can be today partially avoided because we've discovered the transparency of their facts, and we've discovered also how to detoxify the body. And we teach that in seminars, and I've written books about it, but it is with nice organic aromas that we can detoxify, because we succeeded with rats. You know, I didn't believe in that before, but to see the rats that were detoxicated from Roundup after 1 week of this kind of treatment was astonishing for me. So I think that we can help the victims today socially by transparency and court affairs, and also physically by new kind of treatments, having very nice food, organic food, equilibrated is one of the components of the secret, and one of the components of the secret, and the other one is the detoxification by the aromas from organic products and plants.
But it isn't the job for consumers to do that. What does that mean for or what did the political leaders react of these publications and informations?
Well, the political leaders are like a piece of cheese in a sandwich, you know. They are scratched between the industry and the economy. They have been put on by the economical system because the 8 biggest companies in this topic are the richest of the world. They have more than 50% of the money of the world. So the politicians, they said, we are not going to give the renewal of glyphosate for 15 years, but we are going to give it for 3 to 5 years, and we need transparency, and Monsanto says no. And Bayer promised me some transparency in BFR in Germany, where they organized a big meeting, because Germany was the country, the referee country for glyphosate for EFSA, which is a European agency. And Bayer promised some transparency, but said, we are not responsible of Monsanto yet. So I hope that this is progressing, and I think that the politicians should be, the local politicians are often courageous because they are not compromised so much, but to me, when you access to a high level of politics, you are like a piece of cheese between two slices of sandwich, and you cannot do too much.
So, but we have a lot of findings, and how can they be fruitfully carried forward in the future?
In the future, we need to win in justice, and we need to go in justice in different countries. Even if there will be some failures, people will know better what's going on, and they will not trust anymore the politicians and their outsiders companies. It's not that the companies are really giving always money to the politicians. It's the same family, in fact. And we need more transparency, and we need some hope, because we are quite certain now that the future will be different, because it cannot stand like it is, this system.
What contribution does the organization made on voluntary basis, such as Zivilcourage Traunstein, the members of the Zivilcourage Traunstein, Salzburg and Inzell?
I do not only encourage them, but I congratulate all of you, all of these people, because I think it's because of the civil movements around the world like yours that we can hope. Again, I explained that in 1998, Monsanto was saying we will have 50% of the land in Europe, and now they have 0.05% because of the mobilization of the civil society, together with scientists, together with some local politicians, etc.
So please, some words for the Zivilcourage Traunstein, Salzburg and Inzell for the future to their 10th anniversary.
I will say just one word from the deep of my heart. Congratulations, and please continue. Go on.
So thank you, Professor Seralini, for this time, for this interview.
Thanks to you.
Enjoy your life, stay and your work. Thank you for all the things.
Thank you very much, and you too.
Bye.
Bye.